Hello, everyone. Welcome to my conference talk on unveiling the drivers of Bangladesh's economic boom and lessons for developing nations. Before we go any further, I would just like to say that I couldn't have done this without the incredible support of my mentor, Ethan. His expertise and guidance have been invaluable throughout this entire journey. My name is Rayyan Ahmad. I'm 17 years old and studying at Saratoga High School in the Bay Area. When I'm not diving into economics, you can find me on the soccer field or lost in a video game. The first reason why I'm researching this topic is due to my passion for economics, and secondly, because Bangladesh's rapid growth story is a captivating puzzle. Plus, as someone from Pakistan, a fellow developing nation, I'm hoping this research can illuminate a path for my country's progress too. So, what are we going to uncover today? First, we'll dive right into the heart of the matter, the big question driving this research. From there, we'll set the stage with the introduction to the topic. Next, I'll delve into the details of my research, exploring my methodology and the data I used to uncover the story. Then, I'll share the exciting discoveries I made. Finally, I'll discuss the implications of my findings and where this research can lead us. Let's start with the central question. What has contributed to Bangladesh's rapid increase in GDP? What factor or factors have contributed most to their success? How can countries in similar circumstances learn from Bangladesh? And how can Bangladesh be used as an exemplar for policies other countries should model? Please keep this question in mind as we move on forward. To understand the context of this question, we need to step back and examine the broader picture. Why is this research relevant and important? The world economy is increasingly interconnected. A growing economy in one country can create a ripple effect, impacting the lives of those across borders. Similarly, the decline of an economy can have adverse effects on others and can lead to amplifying global recessions, such as that in 2008. A model for developing nations, understanding the factors contributing to economic growth in developing countries is crucial for building resilience against global economic shocks. Developing countries are often more vulnerable to external shocks due to their reliance on exports, remittances, and foreign investment. By identifying and addressing vulnerabilities, these countries can improve their ability to weather economic storms and achieve sustainable growth. To unravel the complexities of Bangladesh's economic growth, I delved into a rigorous research process. Let's explore the methodology and data that underpin the study. I analyzed data from the World Bank under the database called World Development Indicators. Through my search at the World Bank, I looked at a host of variables ranging from education spending and exports to exports and imports, and all other variables linked with the most important variable of them all, GDP growth. Here are some basic definitions of some of the more complex variables. Manufacturing value added, the value added to the economy through manufacturing processes. Foreign direct investment, or FDI, capital investment by a foreign entity into a business or corporation to another country. Crop production index, a single number reflecting yearly food crop output compared to a 2014/2016 baseline. Household and NPISH's final consumption expenditure, spending by households on goods and services. Domestic credit to the private sector, loans and credit extended by financial institutions to individuals and businesses within a country, i.e., investment. By measuring all these variables, I aim to include the main factors that go into the GDP equation, which is consumption plus investment plus government spending plus net exports. I further broke down these variables into four distinct sections: education, which is marked in red, sectoral shifts, which is marked in yellow, consumption, which is marked in the turquoise color, and investment, which is marked in purple. The eight comparison countries listed below were specifically chosen to compare economic growth between the countries. Middle-income countries such as Pakistan, Egypt, Indonesia, Turkey, Thailand, Vietnam, and Bangladesh all compare with each other, as well as Malaysia, which is considered to be on the cusp of reaching the title of a high-income country. Additionally, all these countries are located in developing regions: South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. These countries are also considered emerging markets and have huge room for growth and expansion. The two main charts I made are scatter plots, which will compare the eight different countries amongst each other, and the time series plot, which showcase the success of certain policies and actions for Bangladesh over a period of time. With the methodological groundwork laid, let's delve into the findings. The data reveal some intriguing patterns. Figure 1 plots the relationship between expenditure on education and GDP growth among the selected sample of countries. Contrary to common economic theory, I find no correlation between education spending on and GDP growth. For example, Bangladesh had the lowest government expenditure on education, but had the second highest GDP growth in 2015. Thailand also seems anomalous, as it has a higher government expenditure on education than most countries, but has the lowest GDP growth. Economist Richard Easterlin argues in his paper, "Why isn't the whole world developed? that there may be additional factors besides spending, like attendance. Government expenditure may not match the number of people who attend formal schooling, and therefore we explain the lack of clear relationship between spending and growth. Though my analysis of the previous figures suggests a weak or inconclusive correlation between total government expenditure and annual GDP growth, I observe a stronger correlation between literacy rates and economic performance. This is shown by the positive trend line that can be seen in Figure 3. Countries with higher literacy rates, with Thailand being the only exceptions, have all seen annual GDP growth above the trend line and a relatively higher level than both Pakistan and Egypt, two countries with relatively low literacy rates. This shows that simply increasing expenditure may not directly translate to economic growth, but that strategic investments in education that demonstratively improve learning outcomes likely hold the key. However, Bangladesh serves as a fascinating outlier. Manufacturing has also played a large role in the reason for Bangladesh's economic success. As Bangladesh's manufacturing value added increases, its GDP level does too. Pakistan's manufacturing value added stayed relatively the same across the 9 years, which may explain why its GDP level did not increase as much as Bangladesh's increase. The difference in the manufacturing value added between Pakistan and Bangladesh also widened between 2015 and 2019, which has resulted in Bangladesh surpassing the GDP level of Pakistan. From this graph, we can see how big a role manufacturing plays in a country's GDP and thus economic growth. Though you would expect there to be some correlation between FDI and GDP growth, the graph proves the contrary. FDI provides a capital inflow for businesses, which can lead to production and economic activity. Furthermore, technology can be transferred and already set practices can be made more efficient, which may ultimately boost the economy. A hypothesis as to why we see no clear relationship could be due to a higher emphasis on domestic innovation and investment, which can be shown through Bangladesh's increase in local manufacturing as shown on the previous slide. Agriculture has also played a large role in Bangladesh's economic success. As shown by the graph, countries with a higher level of crop production index generally have a higher level of GDP growth in the same year. Countries such as Vietnam, Pakistan, and Bangladesh all have high levels of crop production index, which has resulted in their growth in GDP. However, it can also be noted that Turkey has a high value on the crop production index, but has a relatively low GDP growth in the same year. Though agriculture has a role in the growth of Bangladesh's economy, it may not be the main reason for their growth, as Bangladesh is way above the trend line, as you can see. Exports are a major factor in GDP growth, but it's not the case for Bangladesh. One explanation for this result may be that exports are increasing, but at a slower rate than GDP growth, suggesting that it may be a factor in Bangladesh's growth, but not the driving one. Another explanation could be due to low-value exports. Bangladesh is notorious for its garment industry. However, it may generate lower profits and may not create a significant spillover effect into other sectors. There is somewhat of a correlation between the imports of goods and services and GDP growth, but it can't be said with certainty that this is the reason for the rapid growth in Bangladesh's economy. Figure 8 points to how, in the long run, a decrease in imports as a percentage of GDP had led to an increase in annual GDP growth. However, this is not always the case as shown in the graph. The goods and services being imported must also be taken into account, as most goods imported can be intermediate goods or capital equipment, which are used in the stages of production and can promote economic growth as production and productivity increase. The influx of personal remittances has demonstrably contributed to Bangladesh's economic upsurge. The mostly positive correlation between GDP growth and remittances, as shown in Figure 9, signifies the likely importance remittances have on Bangladesh's economy. Tying this in with the economic equation GDP equals C plus I plus G plus net exports or XM, remittances have likely played a large role in increasing consumption in the economy and thus GDP. Remittances directly inject new money into the country's economy. This inflow of foreign currency translates into increased disposable incomes for households in Bangladesh. This increase in disposable income can lead to an increase in consumption by consumers. Thus, aggregate demand also experiences a demonstrable upward trajectory. This heightened demand can be a potential stimulus for business investment, as it incentivizes domestic businesses to expand and increase production to meet the rising demand. This production expansion necessitates additional labor inputs, ultimately leading to increased employment opportunity and economic growth in the country. The trend shown in Figure 10 highlights the increasing disposable income in Bangladeshi households. signifies a general rise in the standard of living for citizens. As explained previously, an increase in general consumption directly translates to demand for goods and services produced within the economy. The factor is not just a result of economic growth, but also a driver. Increased household spending by households creates a positive feedback loop that ultimately raises Bangladesh's GDP. While a weak positive correlation exists between domestic credit to private sector, i.e. investment, and GDP growth in 2017, Bangladesh exhibited a higher growth rate than predicted by this trend, suggesting that additional factors influencing its economic performance. A possibility as to why Bangladesh seems to outperform is that it may be more efficient in translating available credit into productive investments. Factors like better loan targeting and effective financial regulations explain why Bangladesh might be achieving a higher return on investment from its available credit pool. Drawing insights from Bangladesh's impressive economic growth, fueled by a strong manufacturing sector, a productive agriculture industry, and significant inflows of remittances, this analysis explores two solutions that hold potential for seeking to replicate other developing nation countries seeking to replicate this success story. One policy that I would recommend for other developing nations is fostering a competitive manufacturing sector. Governments should incentivize domestic manufacturing through targeted tax rates, subsidies, and strategic trade policies, focusing on high growth industries aligned with national development goals. Performance-based incentives can also be used, as this would foster competitiveness and efficiency. Additionally, investing in infrastructure is crucial for developing nations to promote manufacturing and decrease operational costs. Furthermore, the investment in infrastructure can also attract foreign direct investment, further helping the nation's economy. Though this is a costly investment and often requires several years to see its true value, this, in my opinion, is a must for developing nations. Lastly, governments must be careful in their protectionist policies. They should develop a well-designed strategy that should encourage domestic investment while still allowing healthy competition from foreign companies to truly see economic prosperity. With these policies being successfully implemented, developing nations will likely experience job creation, technological advancements, increased exports, and reduced reliance on imports, which all result in economic prosperity. Secondly, another policy that could be implemented by countries is improving the quality of education. As seen in this paper, Bangladesh spends less on education compared to the other set of countries, yet it is more effective because it may emphasize skill-based learning rather than rote memorization. Though my analysis shows no relationship between educational spending and GDP growth, part of the reason for this may be spending on quantity rather than quality of education. The analysis between literacy rate and GDP growth shows that boosting true measures of education has real returns. Investing in teacher training, curriculum development, and early education can be used to raise useful skills and can be beneficial policy for developing nations. Offering skill-based learning fosters critical thinking, problem solving, and collaboration, making students highly valuable in the job market. The problem that some developing countries face is that schools are there, but the students are not. Early childhood education should be incentivized, and there should be some degree of government intervention, such as discounted school fees, tax breaks, or other benefits for families which would encourage families to send their kids to school. Investing in education is not a quick fix, but rather a long-term investment with the potential to unlock a country's human capital and steer the country towards long-term sustainable economic growth. In the end, I found that manufacturing, agriculture, and personal remittances are the key reason for Bangladesh's recent rapid growth. Other factors like education, net exports, investment, and foreign direct investment are not discredited, but in this case don't show any clear evidence pointing to them contributing to the country's economic growth. Furthermore, based based on this research, I have proposed two policies that other similar developing nations can adopt. One is cultivating a more competitive manufacturing sector with the help of domestic investment, and the second is improving the quality rather than the quantity of education to utilize the human capital in the country. While this finding provides valuable insights, future studies should use more rigorous methods that allow establishing causation. Establishing causation has significant benefits for future research. Firstly, it allows researchers to move beyond simply describing relationships to understanding the underlying mechanisms at play. This knowledge can then be used to develop more effective interventions and strategies. Secondly, understanding causal relationships allows researchers to make more accurate predictions about future trends and recommendations to policymakers on effective strategies to reduce global poverty. If this can be achieved, future research in this field of economics will be clearer and more definite. Thank you for listening and watching my presentation. Feel free to email me any questions. Thank you.